and morning to everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Understanding King 5, the new code for retirement fund governance. As Wayne said, I'm Geraldine Fowler, IRFA President, and we're really pleased that you could all join us today. I see there's quite a few attendees. And this session has really been designed as a practical guide for trustees, principal officers, and any other service providers, I suppose. And we're really here to help you navigate this latest evolution in retirement fund governance.
Just getting the next slide for us. Thank you. Welcome again. And I just wanted to say that IFA is deeply committed to supporting informed governance decisions within the retirement fund sector. We understand the immense responsibility you all carry. Retirement funds manage vast assets on behalf of members and beneficiaries. Sound governance isn't just a good idea. It's fundamental to long-term fiduciary it is fundamental to long-term financial security. This webinar is the first in a two-part series. Today, we'll familiarize you with King 5's content as it applies to your funds. Our key objective today are straightforward. We want you to understand King 5 and why it matters to retirement funds. We also explore the code's structure and foundational concepts. And we'll examine how each of the 13 principles applies to retirement fund governance. Ultimately, we aim to equip you to make an informed decision about implementing King 5 to your fund, or for your fund at least. Our second webinar will then delve into the disclosure requirements for funds choosing to adopt King 5. But first, let's dive into King 5. Let's dive into what King 5 actually is and why it's important.
Okay, so thanks, Wayne. And so let's start off by saying what exactly is King 5 and why does it matter for retirement funds. So King 5 is the 2025 edition of the South Africa's Code on Corporate Governance. It's issued by the Institute of Directors South Africa. So while retirement funds already operate within an extensive regulatory framework, King 5 offers us additional voluntary value. It promotes the ethical leadership, transparency, and sustainable value creation. This code enhances trust in the retirement fund system amongst our members and our beneficiaries. It also significantly improves the quality of board decision-making and the strategic oversight that comes with that. King 5 helps align trustee conduct with the legitimate expectations of members, employers, and regulators, and it provides a comprehensive framework for addressing the public interest nature of retirement funds. Ultimately, high standards of governance are essential. They reflect the critical role that retirement funds play in the members' long-term financial security. We'll now look at how King 5 is structured.
Understanding the structure of King 5 is crucial for applying it effectively. The code uses an outcomes-based approach. This means governance is judged by its consequences, not just its compliance. The structure moves from concrete actions to ultimate outcomes. Recommended practices support principles, and these principles should result in specific governance outcomes. There are 4 key governance outcomes. These are ethical culture, performance and value creation, conformance and prudent control, and legitimacy. And the code outlines 13 principles. These cover areas like leadership, ethics, strategy, reporting, and stakeholders. We'll explore each of these in detail later. This outcomes-based approach is a key differentiator. It allows for flexibility, which brings us to our next point, the apply and explain approach.
Thanks, Wayne. Yes, I mean, as we know, King 5, as we said, just moves on effectively. It's not a change of what we've seen before. It is just how we now need to deal with it. And what it really brings in is this apply and explain approach to demonstrate the achievement of outcomes. So this approach is then central to King 5. It balances consistency with contextual flexibility. This is especially important for retirement funds, which vary greatly in size and complexity. And there are three core requirements here. First, you have to apply all 13 principles universally. That's a non-negotiable objective, to apply all 13 principles. And that then gets adapted to your specific fund. And then second, if you don't implement a recommended practice exactly as stated, you must then explain why you didn't. You also need to describe any compensating measures that you have taken. And then thirdly, the board must provide a concluding statement, and this statement then confirms whether applying King 5 has achieved the 4 governance outcomes that Wayne mentioned in the previous slide for your fund. The key insight here is that the recommended practices are not rigid rules, but they're rather flexible guidance tools. You can adapt them based on your fund's specific context, and the critical test will always be whether your approach achieves the principal's objectives. Now, let's explore the foundational philosophies behind King 5. So, the foundational philosophies looks at saying King 5 isn't just a set of rules. It's built on core philosophies that guides its application. And understanding these helps trustees apply the code in a principled and relevant way then. These philosophies ensure that governance goes beyond mere compliance, focusing on broader societal impact, and they shape how we view a retirement fund's role in the larger ecosystem of the financial services. First, King 5 emphasizes suitable development and value creation. Now, this means retirement funds must consider their impact on the economic, social, and environmental systems that they operate within. Second, integrated thinking is absolutely crucial. This involves actively considering how different factors connect and then interdepend to create value over a period of time. Thirdly, the code embraces Ubuntu Botu, corporate citizenship and stakeholder inclusivity. And this philosophy recognizes this interconnectedness of all relationships then within the fund's ecosystem. These foundational ideas help us understand the spirit of King 5. And we'll now look at how this thing translates into specific terms for retirement funds.
Because King 5 was written for a wide range of organizations, we need to translate its terms for our specific retirement fund context. This ensures everybody understands the language and how it applies directly to our roles. Clarifying these terms helps bridge the gap between the general corporate governance framework, and the specific realities of retirement funds. It ensures we're all speaking the same language. For example, with King 5, what King 5 calls an organization, we understand as a retirement fund. The governing body is our board of trustees, and members of the governing body are trustees. Management refers to the principal officer and operational management, with the principal officer being the closest equivalent to a CEO. And importantly, stakeholders in King 5 are your members, while stakeholders encompass a broader group, including beneficiaries, employers, and service providers. With this clear terminology, we can now examine how King 5 fits into the existing regulatory landscape. Retirement funds operate in a highly regulated environment, so it's crucial to understand how King 5 fits in. King 5 doesn't replace existing regulation. It complements and enhances them, creating a more robust governance framework. It works alongside the Pension Funds Act and other codes to provide a comprehensive approach. This integrated view helps trustees make informed decisions about adopting King 5. Our primary regulatory framework includes the Pension Funds Act, oversight by the FSCA and the Prudential Authority, Regulation 28, which also includes ESG factors. King 5 then acts as a complementary voluntary code, alongside CRESA 2 for responsible investing, the the FSCA's previous incarnation, Circular PF 130 for good governance. Together, these frameworks form a comprehensive governance equation. King 5 plus CRESA 2 plus Pension Funds Act plus Regulation 28. This creates a robust and holistic approach to sound retirement governance. Now, let's get an overview of the 13 principles that form the backbone of this comprehensive framework.
Okay, so if we look at what these 13 principles are, the King 5 code is structured around these 13 principles, each of them then addressing a vital aspect of corporate governance. And these principles provide a comprehensive framework ensuring all dimensions of the retirement fund governance is then considered. While the application will vary, all 13 are relevant to your fund's operations. They cover everything from the leadership and ethics to risk, compliance, and stakeholder engagement. These principles are designed to be interconnected, working together to achieve the 4 governance outcomes we discussed earlier on. You'll recall them to achieve an ethical culture, good performance, effective control, and legitimacy. That is ultimately what we want to achieve by applying these 13 principles. And we'll now dive into the first of these principles, which is leadership, which then sets the tone for all the other governance, for all the governance practices. So principle 1, leadership, deals about the governing body and how they lead the organization. Leadership is foundational. It emphasizes that the board of trustees must lead ethically and effectively. This aligns perfectly with your fiduciary responsibilities under the Pension Funds Act. Now, this principle is not new to us. We all understand that our regulations currently in place requires this from us. But this now gets brought into the Code 5. Trustees must embody characteristics like integrity and competence to ensure sound decision-making. Effective leadership ensures the entire fund operates with purpose and accountability. Your fiduciary duties include acting with due care, diligence, and good faith, avoiding conflicts of interest, and always acting in the best interest of the fund and its members. King 5 outlines 6 key leadership characteristics: integrity, competence, responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. These are essential for trustees to cultivate. Practical application means having a clear board charter, conducting regular performance evaluations, and then continuously developing trustee skills. This focus on this strong ethical leadership is critical. We'll now move on to principle 2, which now takes leadership and leading with governance to the next point that then follows on from that. So principle 1 deals with how the governing body having to lead, and the second principle deals with the governing body leading the entire organization with ethics. So, and the governance thereof. So it builds on our discussion of the ethical leadership, in that principle 2 now dives deeper into the ethical culture of the fund itself. This principle is crucial because of the public trust placed in retirement funds and the trustees. We're not talking about individual ethics here. It's about embedding ethical values throughout the entire organization or fund. This means ensuring ethical considerations guide absolutely every interaction from service providers to members and to beneficiaries. Regulation 28 reinforces this by requiring funds to consider environmental, social, and governance factors in their investment decisions. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a fiduciary duty that aligns now perfectly with King 5's call for responsible corporate citizenship. And then CRISA 2 further emphasizes this, urging institutional investors to promote sustainable value creation. This means looking beyond the short-term financial gains to the broader impact of investments. So for retirement funds, ethical governance isn't just a nice to have, it is a core responsibility that underpins absolutely everything we do. And this then leads us directly on how we define strategy and performance for sustainable value creation, which then takes us to the next principle.
Principle 3 shifts our focus to strategy, performance, and value creation, but with a crucial distinction for retirement funds. Unlike commercial entities, our primary objective isn't profit. It's providing benefits to members. This means our definition of performance and value creation is unique. It's about delivering sustainable risk-adjusted returns while diligently managing expenses to maximize members' retirement savings. We must have a long-term view, considering the diverse needs of all members. For those just starting their careers to those nearing retirement. This holistic approach ensures value for both current and future generations. All our strategies and operational practices must align with our fiduciary obligations. The fund's rules, the regulatory environment, including Regulation 28 and CRISA 2. This ensures we're always acting in the best interest of our members. Excuse me. For commercial umbrella funds, this also means balancing commercial considerations with unwavering priority of member interests. Next, we'll explore how effective reporting helps us communicate this value to our stakeholders. Principle 4 addresses reporting, moving beyond mere compliance to truly informing stakeholders. We want to show how the fund creates, preserves, and even erodes value over time. While statutory reporting is essential, King 5 encourages us to enhance our reporting. This means demonstrating the impact of our investments, both financially and in terms of social and environmental context. We need to show how we address risk, sustainability, and member expectations. This integrated thinking connects our strategy, governance, performance, and overall impact. CRISA 2 also provides valuable guidance here, recommending specific disclosure practices for responsible investing. This helps us demonstrate accountability and transparency in our investment decisions. Remember, any fund claiming King 5 adoption must use the King 5 disclosure framework. We'll delve into this in much more detail during our second webinar. For now, let's turn our attention to the composition of the board. Principle 5 focuses on the board's composition, emphasizing a balanced mix of competency, diversity, and independence. This ensures objective and effective discharge of our obligations. Trustees need a strong foundation of knowledge in legal, financial, and strategic matters, coupled with continuous development. A skills matrix can be a valuable tool here. Diversity goes beyond demographics. It includes age, culture, and varied fields of knowledge. This promotes diversity of thought and also avoids groupthink. Crucially, every trustee, whether member elected or employer appointed, must exercise independence of mind. This means prioritizing the fund's best interests above all. King 5 specifically recommends appointing independent trustees to enhance objectivity, even when not legally required. This helps balance perspectives and strengthens decision-making. This concept of independence is so vital that we'll dedicate our next slide to exploring trustee independence and conflict in more detail.
Thanks, Wayne. So, talking on, as Wayne said, and building on from Principle 5, the slide that you see now delves into the critical aspects of trustee independence and managing conflicts of interest. And this is paramount in our representative board structures. So, independence is about a trustee's state of mind and integrity. It's not just a formal classification. Even elected or appointed trustees must prioritize the fund's interest over those of their appointing constituency. Conflicts of interest are often inevitable, as we know, especially for sponsor-appointed trustees. The key is to identify them, declare them, and then manage them effectively, not necessarily not to eliminate them. Clear recusal policies are essential. Trustees must know when to step aside from decisions where their personal or business interests conflict with the fund's interests. And that then takes us to confidentiality. And this is another core fiduciary duty of trustees. Trustees handle sensitive information and maintain security detail, and the maintenance of the sensitive information and the security thereof is absolutely crucial, even after a trustee has left the board of trustees that they served on. The golden rule here is simple: act with independence, manage your conflicts transparently, and always maintain confidentiality. This ensures trust and protects the fund's integrity. We'll now look at the how board committees can support these governance principles that we discussed under Principle 5. So if we look at the committees of board, Principle 6 highlights how board committees can enhance governance, allowing for specialized focus and deeper oversight. While not statutorily required for retirement funds, committees offer immense practical value to the fund, especially as funds grow in size and complexity. This builds on our previous discussion about the trustee independence, ensuring objective decision making. We often see funds establishing committees like investment committees to oversee strategy and performance, or audit and risk committees to review financial reporting and internal controls. These committees allow trustees to delve into specific areas with greater detail, ensuring then robust governance. For instance, a death benefits committee can handle the sensitive and complex Section 37C distributions with the necessary care and expertise that is required by the fund. And it's crucial to remember the golden rule here. Delegation to a committee does not absolve the full board from its ultimate accountability. The board must ensure these committees are effective and their recommendations are sound. The responsibility and the accountability remains with the board. And this now leads us nicely into Principle 7, which addresses the appointment and delegation to management, another obviously critical area where accountability remains with the board.
Principle 7 focuses on the appointment of and delegation to management, which is particularly vital for retirement funds, excuse me, given their operational models. The principal officer is essentially the fund's executive anchor, akin to a CEO. The board must ensure that the principal officer possesses the necessary competence, authority, and resources to execute the fund's strategy effectively. This includes maintaining an arm's length relationship to provide objective guidance. The principal officer also serves as the primary liaison with the regulators, ensuring all statutory returns and compliance obligations are met. A significant aspect of this principle for retirement funds is the oversight of outsourced service providers. While funds delegate many functions, the board retains ultimate accountability. This means due diligence in selection, clear contractual agreements, and active monitoring of performance are non-negotiables. We can't stress enough that simply relying on administration reports isn't enough. The board must interrogate these service providers into the fund's risk and reporting framework. This continuous oversight ensures that even delegated functions align with the fund's objective. It sets the stage for our next discussion on risk and compliance. Principles 8 and 9, covering risk and compliance, are fundamentally intertwined and critical for any retirement fund. Principle 8 emphasizes that the board must govern risk in a way that supports the fund's strategic objective. This means defining the fund's risk appetite and tolerance, understanding how much risk it's willing to take to achieve returns. It's not just about avoiding hazards. It's also about identifying opportunities, like in investment risk. The scope must be comprehensive, covering everything from investment and operational risks to cyber and service provider risks. Principle 9 then addresses compliance, requiring the board to govern adherence to applicable laws and adopted standards. This goes beyond mere tick box exercises. It's an ethical imperative. Compliance ensures that the fund's legitimacy adhering to the Pension Funds Act, FSCA and Prudential Authority standards, PAPIA, and other such things, it also extends to voluntary adopting non-binding rules like CRISA 2 to enhance governance or King 5. These two principles are deeply integrated. A failure in compliance is a major risk, and effective risk management absolutely requires robust compliance. This leads us to consider how technology plays a role in managing these risks.
So moving on to principle 10, it deals with data, information, and technology. And as we know, this has become very important. Data, information, and technology has become increasingly vital. Technology, and this is a very important statement, technology is no longer just an operational tool. It is a strategic asset and a significant source of risk that the board must actively govern. Given that most funds outsource their IT systems to administrators, the board cannot outsource its accountability. It must ensure that the service level agreements explicitly cover data ownership, access rights, disaster recovery, and system uptime. Protecting member data is a core fiduciary duty for the trustees. This means that robust information security management systems are absolutely essential to prevent breaches and ensure compliance with the Protection of Personal Information Act and cybersecurity and resilience standards set by the regulators. Boards also need to oversee the strategic alignment of IT with the fund's objectives, leveraging technology to enhance member engagement and improve administrative efficiency. This principle underscores the board's ongoing responsibility in a rapidly evolving digital landscape, and it naturally connects to how we manage remuneration in this environment, which then takes us to Principle 11 that deals with remuneration. Remuneration requires the board to ensure that all remuneration is fair, responsible, and importantly, transparent. This promotes sustainable value creation within the fund's broader context. Unlike commercial entities, retirement funds don't typically have executives employed directly by the fund. However, trustee remuneration and service provider fees are significant considerations. The board must adopt a remuneration policy that is fair and responsible, designed to attract and retain necessary skills, and then also reflect the board's fund's complexity and time commitment. Service providers' fees also significantly impact member outcomes. The board must ensure that the fees are reasonable, they're transparent, and provide value for money. This includes understanding the total investment charge, as an example, and avoiding hidden costs. Performance fees, in particular, need careful structuring to align with the long-term value creation for members. Transparency is absolutely key here. Full disclosure of trustee remuneration and service provider fees is required in annual financial statements. Since members don't vote on remuneration like shareholders do, the board carries a high duty of accountability when it comes to this. This commitment to transparency and fairness is a cornerstone of good governance, which we'll see reinforced in our next principle on assurance.
As we move from remuneration, Principle 12 focuses on assurance. This principle ensures that various assurance functions and services work together to create an effective internal control environment and safeguard the integrity of the fund's external reports. It's about building a combined assurance model. This model coordinates different sources of assurance, like management controls, compliance monitoring, and external audits. This gives the board a holistic view of the fund's governance, risk, and control environment. This approach helps avoid duplication and ensures that all risk areas are covered. It provides the board with reliable and timely information for sound decision making. For smaller funds, this might mean a simplified plan, but the goal remains the same: confidence in the information received and the effectiveness of control. Now, let's look at our final principle, Principle 13, which addresses stakeholders. Stakeholders is our final principle. It requires the board to adopt a stakeholder-inclusive approach, always acting in the long-term best interests of the fund within its broader context. While we have many stakeholders, regulators, employers, service providers, members, and beneficiaries are always the primary focus. Their long-term financial security is the ultimate purpose of the fund. This means engagement needs to be meaningful and transparent, not just a tick box exercise. It's about proactive communication and truly understanding their needs. This principle reinforces that the fund operates within a broader ecosystem, and its legitimacy depends on maintaining trust with all these groups. Now that we've covered all 13 principles, let's discuss how they can be applied proportionally.
So if we look at proportional application, and this is a crucial point for many funds, trustees, and so forth to understand. King 5, as we said earlier on, isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. And the slide that you can see here with regards to the proportional application emphasizes the proportional application approach of King 5, meaning practices can and should be scaled based on your fund's specific characteristics. Like a smaller fund, less complex, won't implement King 5 in the same way that a large and complex fund would do it. And for instance, a small fund might have the full board perform committee functions, whilst with a large fund, you would have specialized committees for audit, risk, and investment. The 13 principles themselves apply universally to every fund, and that's important to remember. The principles, all 13, apply to all funds. It is the implementation practices that differ across the different funds. The key is to adapt the practices to your fund's size, the complexity of your fund, and the business model thereof, ensuring that you still achieve the objectives of each principle and the desired outcomes. And this flexibility is a real strength of King 5. So we'll now move on to look some of the strategic decisions for funds as to whether to adopt King 5.
So we've explored the principles, and now it's time to consider the decision to adopt King 5. This isn't a light decision. It's a strategic one that requires careful consideration of both the benefits and the commitments involved. On the benefit side, adopting King 5 enhances your fund's reputational trust. It signals to members, regulators, and the market that you've committed to the highest standards of ethical governance. It also provides defensibility demonstrating due care and application of mind. But it also comes with commitments. It's resource intensive, requiring time, budget, and expertise. It also invites public scrutiny. So you're holding yourself to a higher standard of transparency. Ultimately, it's about continuous improvement, not one-off exercises. The fundamental question for your board is this: will adopting King 5 help your fund achieve better governance outcomes and create sustainable value for your members? If the answer is yes, then commitment is certainly worthwhile. Let's now look at a practical roadmap for implementation.
So if a board decides to adopt King 5, a structured approach is essential for success. The roadmap that you can see on the slide outlines the 8 steps to guide your implementation journey. So it starts off with considering each principle carefully and reading through all recommended practices. You can't start your journey without understanding King 5, the desired outcomes thereof, the philosophies thereof, and the 13 principles in itself. So you have to educate the board and management on King 5 and the King 5 principles and practices. Then you identify your legislative alignment or conflicts, and you assess proportionately. So you conduct a gap analysis between the current practices, your current practices on your fund, and then the King 5 recommendations. Next, you will now identify alternative or compensating practices and explain any non-implementation. Remember, we said it's this thing of apply and explain. You then present this tailored application to the full board for approval. So at this point, the board can now decide to actually formally adopt it, and they can then thereafter implement. So at that point, they then obviously have to update their charters, policies, and procedures to align with this plan that they have put in place. You then also have to monitor regularly the effectiveness of your new practices. And you reassess the effectiveness of these practices and the outcomes that you're achieving through those practices that you have implemented. Now, it's only in the first year that it is going to be the most intensive. It's going to take up a lot of time. After that, ongoing maintenance is going to become much more manageable. And then, of course, you have to make sure that you then review your report on an annual basis. So if we then sort of sum up and look at the key takeaways of what we discussed today, we have covered a lot of ground, but as Wayne said, we are going to have another webinar. And so before we open for questions, I want to leave you with the 5 key takeaways for today. These are the essential insights to guide your board's King 5 decision-making process. So first, King 5 is voluntary, but absolutely vital. It's not a compulsory piece of legislation. It is voluntary, but it is vital. It is not, as I said, regulatory mandated, but remember, it sets the benchmark for high-quality governance that builds trust. Second, it's an outcome-based approach, not just about ticking boxes. We are no longer just ticking boxes, we are measuring the desired outcomes and working from there. You should focus on achieving those 4 governance outcomes that we mentioned a few times earlier, creating an ethical culture, good performance, effective control, and legitimacy. So the third proportionality is key. You can and should adapt the practices to fit your fund size and complexity. Just be ready to explain your approach. And then, fourth, ethical leadership is not negotiable. Your board sets the tone, and integrity, competence, and accountability are the absolute foundations of the tone set by your board. Finally, remember that true value creation is always member centric. We are moving into an era where the future is absolutely focused on us being member centric. It's about the long-term financial security and well-being of your members. Wayne's now going to share details on our next webinar with you.
If I can get my microphone working. Sorry. um, we haven't got our date yet, so it's an invitation to look out for the invitation to the second in this series of webinars. We obviously have other IRFA webinars, which I hope you'll also join in. We haven't set a date yet, but we will share this with you in the near future. I think. Geraldine, there are a few questions. I just wanted to have a look. And yes, if there's anything we can do. If you have a question, maybe type it in. We can also, if you want to speak, raise your hand and then we'll I think we've enabled that facility. I'm not entirely sure. Yes, I think we have. If you want to speak your question, just raise your hand and we'll enable your microphone for you. In the meantime, maybe I think, okay, thank you, Richard, for the compliment. Um, and then I see Leanne had a question about the main differences between King 4 and 5. Geraldine, I don't know if you want to reflect on that a bit. For me, there's one that just jumps out immediately, but other than that, we can maybe do a bit more work on that if that's if more people have that kind of inquiry. Geraldine, I don't know if you want to
No, I'll kick
start.
off and
Yeah.
you can jump in. And I think the first one that jumps to mind is that we have now moved from a tick box exercise to a desired outcomes based approach in terms of and the way that we actually do this in an integrated fashion. And really, as we said, those desired outcomes is, and that is really I mean, we know there were 17 principles and they've now been combined into 13.
13.
But I think the main point to make is that we are now adopting an outcomes-based approach. And when we've got the 13 principles, but then we've got the philosophy of King 5, and the philosophy really is what we reiterated a few times, which drives those desirable outcomes, the ethical culture, the good performance, effective control, and then legitimacy and sustainability. And Wayne, you can add on, but to me, that is really the main difference between the two, Leanne.
Absolutely, and I think the what adds to that is the fact that you need to demonstrate it with the reporting. I think that for me is the one of the really big shifts there around obviously the various um, areas of focus, the outcomes, and then how do you demonstrate to your stakeholders that you've actually done this or give information to them about these outcomes. Um, I I see there are a couple of others. I'm just having to have a look here. Um, sorry, and thank you. I think the practice notes and development. I and I see there's anonymous who said King 4 had practice notes for funds on how the principles apply to funds, and King 4 doesn't. I mean King 5 doesn't. Um, does that mean that the practice notes fall away? I think if you have a look at the King 5 retirement fund supplement,
Mm,
it does give you guidance, and that's where we sourced
yeah.
a lot of our information around, comparison between what a corporate would, like a commercial enterprise and a not-for-profit, like a retirement fund would be. Again, on the Institute of Directors South Africa's website, you'll be able to find these guidance notes. There is a specific note on retirement funds, and there's also a specific note around application of of the codes.
Mm, mm. But Wayne, I just want to, there was an earlier question, what is the definition of a small fund? What criteria is used to determine what is a small fund? Um, that is a good question. I think there's various factors that one can bring into that, but the first one that would jump to mind to answer that, there isn't any specific criteria. We know as FSCA sets out criteria as far as financial statements are concerned, but to me it is more an issue of the complexity of a fund
That's it.
that will drive what is required. So, I mean, in our presentation, we used examples of small versus large, but you can have a small fund that is also complex, and that requires greater uh, application of certain of the aspects of the principles and the philosophies thereof. So I don't think there's a specific answer to that.
Mm.
I think it is a rather an assessment relative to the various factors relating to a fund. I don't know
Thank you,
if you
Geraldine,
wanted to
for
add
taking
on to
that
that.
one. I kind of was hoping somebody else would pick it up. You're the only somebody else who could pick that one up. Thanks. Another question I think that's quite relevant is, has there been an indication when these must be implemented, taking note that they are voluntary though? So, anonymous, the code's effective date is 1 January 2026. So the revised King 5 is in force. And obviously this is a journey. It's not, if you do choose to adopt it, that was the part of the reason we thought about sharing a implementation, um, you know, guide, or just a framework so that you can start thinking for your fund where it's relevant. So yes, it's in force. Well, if we're going to say in force now, but it's operational from now. So your fund can look at adopting that, and there is some guidance on well, not some guidance. There is, ways in which you can start the journey, and I think full implementation, like Geraldine like lots of what Geraldine said, is really about those outcomes. So it's that journey and how you work through that, and then decide on the the ways you're going to adopt that. Um, which leads me to a question raised by Peter Cronier. It's interlinked. Is like, how would you report this? Um, so in our second session, we'll look at the disclosure requirements. And again, how you choose to report as a fund is your, obviously your discretion. Um, and whether it's a full integrated report, whether it's something you supplement to your trustee. I'm just using some examples. I'm not giving an answer. Geraldine, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
Uh, no, not really, but I think where will the reporting typically happen? I would imagine, I don't know, I'm hoping, Peter, that I'm understanding your question correctly, in that I would think it would fall somewhere into your audit and risk committee, and you would then have, uh, I think your reporting as far as your audit and risk committee would will become very integrated, because it's now going to look across your fund and apply the principles to various of those. But I would, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I would think it's a space where it will fit into. But I suppose at the end of the day, it will depend on how each fund actually decides to do it.
And then a really good question from Wasile is, please give us an example of how these outcomes will be measured when adopting King 5. And I think, Geraldine, I don't know if you want to have a go at that one.
Well, I suppose there's always a easy and a difficult side to each. I mean, your measurement, I mean, we know it talks about fit and proper requirements as far as Board of Trustees are concerned. So that is an easy one to measure. Either someone is fit and proper in terms of industry guidelines, or they're not. So that is an easy one to measure. And I mean, if we ethical culture, I mean, your code of conduct, obviously your fund's code of conduct is going to set out a lot as far as your effective leadership is concerned, and your governance ethics and so forth. And that again is measured in terms of board evaluations and so forth. So I think for each of your principles, and I mean, this is many aspects of the principles are already being applied by boards. And but I think as we go along on this new journey, we are going to get more clever on how it is done. I mean, measurement is also in, are your investment returns sustainable? Do they consider, is your investment policy statement adequate? Does it consider your younger members? Does it consider your older members? Those are the type of measurement tools. And I think as we start delving into each of the principles and you start applying it to your fund, you will start finding there are some really good measurement tools that one can already apply.
And thank you. And I mean, I just want to supplement that with saying, I think what King 5 is saying, these are like themes that we're working on. It's your responsibility as a fund to give meat to what that means in a way. And I mean, some of the answers, like you were saying, is you can find in the law, but some of these things are really your fund, your board of, some soul searching in what they think is appropriate. You're not appropriate, but like a measurement or how they want to measure that outcome.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's one last question there from Blessing.
I see that.
Does the FSCA have any control on this piece, or is it just standalone but assisting in the proper governance? The King 5 works in conjunction with our other regulatory tools that we've got, such as the PF Circular 130, the Pension Funds Act, Regulation 28, CRISA 2. So it works in conjunction with those other regulatory tools that we have got. FSCA does not have control over King 5. Don't know if you want to add anything, Wayne.
No, agreed. It's a really great tool in our toolbox to help us guide our governance thinking and our governance frameworks. I think it will show to the FSCA that you're serious about proper governance if you do apply it, but it's not a legal requirement.
I see Leanne has made a comment there. She says it's not a question, and I think it's a good comment. She's saying, I think that the FSCA's current consideration under COFI of what insurance funds will be required to have in place going forward, for example, in relation to having a compliance or risk function, will feed into what funds will have to put in place for King 5. Maybe the upcoming FSCA governance standard will deal with it. Yeah, good statement there.
And it would be great
Comment.
if it does, if they do sort of
Yeah,
follow one another, because then it's an established framework and things that we're already
yeah,
working on.
yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
for
I don't know if
me,
they.
sorry, Wayne, one last comment from me. I think for me, I'm excited about King 5 and these 13 principles and how we can apply them to our funds. I think, especially sometimes for smaller funds, they don't have the resource necessarily that larger funds do. And I think King 5 and the principles and philosophies behind it gives funds a very nice tool, gives them a very nice comprehensive tool to ensure that that the fund is governed in the way that we should be doing business.
100% agreed. And thank you for all the contributions and questions. It's a journey, and hopefully we'll learn about it. I mean, more about it as we move along and can find better ways to support one another in achieving, if we want to call it King 5 adherence. Um, the reporting webinar is going to give us that extra push as well to see how we can take this from a more theoretical to a more practical implementation. And I think all these questions about what is it, what does this mean, what does that mean, in the reporting disclosure, when you have a look at it, it asks you to define these things. So second part of the journey is an important part. And I think, again, thank you for attending, and let us know if there are any thoughts or comments around this. You're always welcome to reach out to us. You have our office telephone number, and I'm going to scroll through all these slides quickly. I've scrolled too quickly. But if you have anything you want to share, and I didn't put the email address up here, you're always welcome to drop an email to info@irfa.org.za, and we welcome any queries and engagements, and we see how we can work from there. Geraldine, I don't know if you want to close for us, and then we can end the session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Wayne, and thank you, everyone, for taking your valuable time to come and listen. Thanks to our IRFA Secretariat for preparing everything for us. And I wish you all a happy Friday and a safe weekend.
Cheers, everyone.